Well, hello and welcome to the first Photo Critique Live with myself, Paul Thomson, Matt Bishop, and Tom Peters. Hope you're all doing well. So let's do a little bit of an introduction, seeing as you won't really know any of us. I'm Paul Thompson, landscape photographer based in the UK, close to the Lake District and close to the Scottish border as well. My main things I like to shoot are obviously landscapes, anything with water, mountains, streams, and wilderness, really. Matt, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Yeah, I'm Matt Bishop. I've been a landscape photographer now for about 20 years, and I'm an Australian. I live in Italy, and I'd love to just put myself in any condition where I get extreme weather, and I love to capture the light. So that's me.
And Tom, why don't we go to you now?
My name's Tom Peters. I've been a landscape photographer for probably about getting on 8 years now. Um, Originally from the coast down in Cornwall, so I'm used to shooting seascapes. That's when my passion for photography really kicked off, and now I'm living up sort of still southern of UK, but I'm surrounded by woodlands now, so my happy place is now the woods.
So, the idea we have with this series is basically to critique images. And because this is the first one, what we thought we'd do is pick our own images and critique each other's images, which should be interesting.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So what the idea is so what we're going to do is get images and get the stories behind them, the issues we had while taking them, any processing that we used, and probably any post processing that we should have used that didn't. Um, we're also looking to, in future episodes, is get your images on. So the best thing you can do is check out the Facebook page, which is Official Outdoor Photography Guide. And if you want to submit your own images for critique, use the hashtag OPG critique. You must use this hashtag in order to enter the critique, though. So with all that out of the way, let's get on to image one, which is Matt's, I think.
Oh, you're starting off with me, are you?
Yeah, we're starting off with you, buddy.
Okay, so I'll just give you a brief introduction about this image, just so everyone can put themselves in their mindset about what this image is and what it means to me. I took this image in mid last year. I was basically traveling to a secluded area which is about an hour north of Rome, and it's a very hard area to access. And I was there capturing some waterflow that does a beautiful waterfall. While I was at the waterfall, as I was walking back up the track to go home, I turned around and saw this light sort of just curtain through the tops of the canopy of these trees, and the saturation of these trees, and just the way that that soft light changed the warmth and the coldness of these beautiful green saturated trees in the forest just captured me. So I just pulled my camera straight out of my bag with my zoom on, turned around, no tripod, no nothing, bang, took the shot. And it wasn't until I got home, probably a couple of months later, that I pulled the image out and I said, oh, I forgot about that image. And I remember what it was like actually taking it. So I had a look over it. It's not a typical type of image that I usually take. It's more of an abstract. I usually shoot more grand landscape scenes. So this for me is a bit more of an abstract image, but I just really like the lines running through it. It's got a very nice balance. And as I said, it's got a very powerful dynamic of different greens from going from warm to cold. Yeah. And I spent a bit of time in post-production making sure that those saturated greens really, really came out in the scene to the way that I actually captured it. And I basically did the post-processing with this image specifically for print. So I've actually printed quite a few large prints of this to sell on 90 by 60 print, and so that was the objective of this image. And so it was taken with a Pentax K1 and a 70 to 210. I think I shot
Yeah.
at about 150 mils at around 5.6. So that's the story behind this image.
Nice. Nice. Really like it. I really like the cool tones in the background of it.
Mm,
And as you say, the warmth on those middle branches are really, really, really nice. Stands out
mm,
quite well with the ambient light coming down onto it.
mm.
And have you actually darkened those branches down in the foreground there?
No, I didn't. I actually had to get back a bit of those shadows, very, very slightly. It's
Yeah,
hard to
yeah,
appreciate on this screen. You can really appreciate it more on a larger print. It's got some fine details in it, but because
yeah,
the scene behind was so bright, I probably should have taken in a double exposure. But at the same time, I like the way that those bands of branches sort of give it balance and
yeah,
and
yeah,
and make
definitely.
it powerful.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Mm.
What are your
Yeah,
thoughts, Tom?
this is my sort of image. It's I li- did you have to bring? Did you do any sort of warming and cooling of the tones to sort of?
No, very, very little. Maybe that center branch there, the light beam is coming down. I balanced out a bit of warmth to it, but it was naturally quite warm to begin with. That
Yeah,
center branch,
Yeah,
that center foliage. Sorry. Apart from that, everything is pretty much natural. I didn't spend much time on it in post production, um, but I did make sure that everything I did was spot on and correct because I knew that when I was going to finish this image, that its primary objective was to be appreciated as a large print. It's
yeah,
something that on social media and all those forms of how we appreciate a lot of digital photography these days, it didn't get really what it could deserve. It needs to be seen on quite a large scale. So I
yeah, yeah,
thought I'd bring that one up, guys, because a lot of photographers these days don't think about taking photos and post production for print purposes.
yeah,
that's
yeah, for
true. Yeah,
sure.
Mm.
yeah, yeah.
And I'm
Most
gathering
people.
by. Sorry, Tom.
I was
I'm
just going to
gathering.
say most people don't print, do they? Like yourself
No,
did.
they don't. No, they
No.
don't. They don't. It's a shame. It's a shame because the end objective of um of what we do is to have it is an art form, and
Yeah, yeah,
art at the end of the day, what is it? It's a framed print on a wall,
yeah, for
and
sure.
it's a shame that that we don't do it as much anymore. I mean, we have these phones and computer screens that sort of take over from this side, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Which
yeah,
are good. It's good and bad. It's good to have quick access to something, but at the end of the day, it's nice to be able to appreciate something on a wall. So,
yeah, for sure.
mm.
My kind of image, anyway, mate. Really, really like that.
Yeah,
I can't really see anything I would have done differently. What about you, Tom?
No, I think it looks very true to what I think it would have looked like
mm,
because
mm,
you've got a little bit of a silhouette. You haven't lost the detail like Matt said, but you've
Yeah, yeah,
them uprights are quite dark
mm,
in
mm.
comparison. Which if you was looking at a clearing and you got that shaft of light come through, that's probably that's how it would be. I would think
Yeah,
it
yeah,
would
yeah,
be.
yeah, definitely. I mean, probably the only problem you're probably going to have with seeing an image like this to appreciate it on a digital medium is looking at on a screen on a non-collaborated screen. Like on my BenQ screen that I have here, you can really, really appreciate that big dynamic difference
Yeah,
in those cool and warm greens. And
yeah,
and, and on a non-calibrated monitor, you don't get to see all that, and it's a shame.
no, no.
It
Yeah, it
really is.
gets
So
washed out, doesn't it? Really.
yeah, it
yeah.
does. It does. It does.
Right, cool. So that's image one out of the way. Let's move on to image two.
There we go.
Drum roll, was it?
Yeah, yeah. I don't have my drums here. Sorry, I should have bought them with me. Next time. Next time.
So, yeah, mine on second. So this one, this one was. I went to Loch Lomond about 3 weeks ago, something like that. Just taking the camper van for its first outing, For those of you who know, I've just bought a camper van for doing photography trips and what have you. So went out to test it out and went up to the Loch Lomond area and took the kids out for a walk in one of the forests. And I just grabbed the camera because I thought, it's gonna be guaranteed that if I don't take it with me, I'm gonna see something.
Mm.
So I just carried it with me, and of course I came around the corner and found this tree, this gnarly old tree, and it just kind of blew me away. And it's one of those images that you have in your mind's eye, but you've never actually seen the tree to take it, if you know what I mean.
For sure.
Yeah.
So I literally spent 10 minutes taking the shot. That's all. Because obviously when you've got the family with you, it's really difficult to
Certainly is.
spend any time. So, 10-minute shot, really. But I just loved it. When I got it back onto the screen at home, I just absolutely loved it. And it's one of those images, I knew what I wanted at the end of it, but it took me a while to get there with post-production. And I pestered the life out of Matt for about 2 days trying to get this right.
Yes.
But I knew what I wanted. I just didn't know how quite to get it. But I was really, really happy with the end results. On to you, Matt. What do you think?
Well, you know what I think about the image, mate. But for the audience, so basically I'll go over this image. I mean, as you said, Paul, we discussed this image beforehand, and you were asking a bit of advice on my side about what you thought, about what I thought, if there's any way to improve it, especially in post-production or even in cropping. I mean, sometimes it's not just about post-production, it's also about cropping the image and finding the right frame. We've got these powerful digital cameras these days. Why not use all those pixels to their benefit? So I think the frame is excellent. I probably wouldn't change much about the frame. I don't think that you could crop it out much more. Probably the biggest issue I had with this image, just because I love that tree. So for me, I look at the image, I think fantastic image, but I see that tree and I think that tree needs more justice. It is beautiful. Yeah. It's got a beautiful shape to it. It's very mysterious. Mm-hmm. It has a lot to go for it. I think as an image, especially as a scouting image, an image to give you an idea of, hey, I can go back and I know where I can improve. If you wanted to have a A-class image that was just so powerful and really, really told a story, I would go back to that place.
Yeah.
I would see if it's possible to actually move to slightly beyond those bushes that you have in those ferns you got in the foreground. I think they're a tad distracting because
I think the problem was at the outset, wasn't it? Is they had this sort of autumnal color about them, and it was they were quite bright because they were kind of that rusty sort of autumn color, and it was
for sure
really difficult to get rid of them. So I had to really darken those down and crop a lot of them out.
I remember we're talking about that, getting a bit of vignetting to it to sort of make it less distracting. I mean, people have to understand that when when you have a distracting foreground, sometimes vignetting, darkening the corner of the frames very subtly is a powerful tool, and it can focus the eye and tunnel the eye into the frame, which is really good. So we tried to apply that to the image, and I think it worked because beforehand it was a little bit more distracting. But I find that the foreground itself, as beautiful as it is, it has a direct confrontation with the tree the tree trunk itself. The tree trunk should have importance in this image, and it doesn't seem like those ferns are actually leading you into something. It seems like it's a direct confrontation with that tree trunk. I feel like my eye looks at it and I say, I want to see more of that tree. Get those bloody ferns out of the way. That's the way I look at it and the way I see it. So I love it image. I think it's beautiful. But as I said, the tree is so, so beautiful. I think it deserves to be photographed again. Go back, get it in another condition, maybe go back when there's a bit of fog or after a heavy amount of rain. or during midday when you might have some light, traveling through some of those tree branches to give you a bit of a light beam coming into it, and see if you can, just capture the tree itself and its surrounds, because
for sure.
the tree is the center of the subject, but when you're looking at something like that, your eye then automatically goes into the background, and there is some beautiful forest in the background too there with that light that your eye can sort of lead off to.
Yeah,
But the foreground just seems a bit smudgy to me, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. I'm
Mm.
just gonna, before we get to you, Tom, I'm just gonna quickly catch up on this chat. Phil says hi there, tuning in from the northeast of England. Hello, Phil.
Hi, Phil.
Bill, how you doing, mate?
Nathan
All right.
says hi all from Toronto, Canada. How are you doing, Nathan? And Craig says, I like how the softness of the surrounding parts of this image draws the attention to the tree.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah.
And he also says, for the first photo, personally, I like the image, but I can imagine that some critics might say that the trees in front distract the eye from the green part of the image. Interesting.
Yeah, very interesting point of view. Yeah.
Okay, Tom, back to you, mate. What were you thinking about this image?
Yeah. I like that. I obviously the tree is like Matt said is the star of the show, and I can kind of understand what he means. With your eye getting pulled through.
Yeah.
But again, there is a lot of detail there to look at in the background. But I quite like the fact it's a little bit chaotic. I think it does kind of suit. It doesn't suit every image, but in this instance, I do think it is, because the tree is chaotic, isn't it?
Well, yeah.
Kind of that,
yeah. So I do think the image works. I would the foliage on the right hand side is a little bit up right there, which is a bit distracting. But again, I do think sometimes with woodland photography, you have to be a little bit more. I don't know what's the word. I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but you have to be. It is a natural environment. It's generally very chaotic.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
yeah, and sometimes you got to just do the best of what you got. But yeah, what Matt said, maybe with a bit of fog and mist. We always want fog and mist.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would simplify. It would get rid of some of them distractions, obviously. Yeah. But then it's a completely different image as well. Then.
Yeah. True.
But yeah, I like the little bit of light bleed from the corner, and I do think it's quite nice that you do get pulled through the image, because we are. If I take mine, I do try and create a bit of a pull through or a story.
Yeah.
But yeah, whether you could get hung up on that tree a little bit more with slightly different conditions, like Matt said, probably it'd definitely be worth going back to anyway. 100%.
For sure.
Yeah.
Can you remember what did you take it at? Well, did you take it at 24 mils or?
It was pretty wide, yeah. So it would be around about 24. I would imagine 20, 24, somewhere around there.
So imagine just going a little bit further forward and shooting a little bit, just that tad wider. Just to, I don't know, I can see this image, just these branches just sort of leading towards me. And especially when you get really close to these powerful, big trees with these important branches around you, to get in a little bit closer and use a very wide angle, and those branches can twist in, and they actually come towards you, and that can act as a leading line too. I mean, there's probably a million ways you could take this image, really, but what Tom said, the fact that it is a bit chaotic is this image, and like I said, it is a great image. I would just I would go back there a dozen times till I was satisfied, because it's
what it is though. He says this about every image I take. Do you know this? Go back, mate. Go back. You gotta go back.
Yeah. That's what landscape photography is. That's what it is.
This is true.
Go back.
This is true.
Capture the light.
This is why a lot of the one good thing that's come out of all this global carry on is that we've had to concentrate on local areas, and that's the good thing about it. You can go back millions of times to get perfect light. So if anything, that's one good thing that's come out of it. Right, on to the next image, which is Tom's. Come on, prepared to be really, really critiqued here, man.
Yeah, I will be. This is because
Mm,
oh hell, here we go.
here we go.
Um, the story behind this. This isn't actually what it isn't actually my preferred image, the image I set out for this morning. But when I took this collection, this is a part of a collection. There's a very I don't want to say famous, but it is locally to my area of it's called West Woods, and it's littered with bluebells, as you can see.
Mm,
Um, and I live in a real steep valley, and you always get fog or some sort of atmosphere. Normally, most mornings, if I'm honest.
Yeah,
Um, so as you can imagine, it is rammed with photographers when the bluebells kick in.
yeah,
And I got my shots, and I had a chat with a few people, and now on the way back through, and this just caught my eye, just this bit of light happening down, and I just sort of a bit like yours, really, Matt. I just sort of I did use a tripod later on. This shot was took handheld, and I didn't. The light sort of went and gone, and then the time I got my tripod out, I missed it. So I'm lucky I did shoot this handheld. I don't normally shoot handheld, but yeah, it was just in the corner of my eye, and amazingly, it all come together. Normally you miss these sort of situations, but the sun was probably half an hour, 45 minutes from being too harsh. I really had to try and hold back the light on this tree a little bit.
yeah,
I did underexpose it a little bit. Just my main query was not to blow that tree out, obviously.
yeah,
And luckily, shooting on Sony A7R4, I had plenty of information to pull from the shadows. But yeah, it was a very impulsive shot, which is not normally like me. But yeah, it's good to shoot and react sometimes to the light. And I took this image and I knew I liked it, but I didn't really think much of it until I got home.
yeah,
mm,
And I put it on the
mm.
computer, and I think it was one of my favourite from that morning, which says a lot as well. Sometimes the ones you just take and think, yeah, it's all right,
yeah, yeah,
are the ones
There is
that,
a reason. There is a reason for that. Because usually when you're going to a destination, because you know you're going to be photographing something, you sit there with your tripod and you study the scene for a long time. So
hmm,
your expectations on that scene are a lot higher, and your mindset on that scene you're actually taking, you actually know what it is going to be like when you get home because you've
mm,
studied it that hard. You
yeah,
know your dynamic range in your camera, you know your frame. Obviously, we can make mistakes. In this case, this was an impulse. Like I said with that image I took before, complete impulse. You knew you captured something amazing because it was there and then, but you didn't know how it was going to turn out later on because you didn't study the scene long enough.
yeah,
That was a split second. That light could have changed.
hmm,
yeah,
Beautiful,
yeah,
beautiful image.
yeah. I love it. I love this image. It's really nice, and what I like about it, as well as the light hitting that tree and in the background, there is the fact that you've not gone over the top with the color of the bluebells,
no,
which a lot of people tend to do.
Mm, mm.
yeah,
They absolutely go wild on the vibrance on the color of the
yeah,
bluebells, and it looks a lot nicer. Just that slight desaturated look.
yeah. To be honest with you, I do tend to. I never used to mind. I think it's like a journey that most photographers
Yeah,
go through,
it is.
obviously.
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, I do tend to desaturate a lot, most of my woodland images. And naturally, because we're striving for that atmosphere that you see in the distance, sort of mid ground into the far distance, that obviously helps
yeah.
create the image I knew I could get out the file when I was there, if you know what I mean. So
Mm,
I knew I could. There was something there that I could work with, but I just
mm.
yeah, like Matt said, I didn't really have time. I knew the settings. My camera was already sort of set up ready in my bag anyway, so I got kind of lucky. I got lucky really.
That is beautiful. It's beautiful. If I was to, because you guys know me, I'm always going to find, I'm always going to pick something out of a shot. I mean, okay, we're doing a critique, so you kind of have to, don't you?
Yeah,
Um, Tom, I've told you before, this is probably one of the best images I've seen you take. I love everything about it. I love the atmosphere. I can really appreciate how your style has changed over the last, 2 years. You definitely evolved, and your images especially have got this beautiful soft tone to it. And you're not punchy with your contrast. You're not trying to make your images stand out. They tell a story and they need to be appreciated.
Yeah.
I love the way that you've masked in those beautiful, those highlights to those dominating tree trunks, which have become part of your frame,
Yeah.
and especially the corner and the center. If I was going to be picky about anything, because let's face it, at the end of the day, we can always pick up something. Someone's always going to pick up something. We can always try and perfect an image even more. Not that we want to, because the imperfection in photography is the beauty of photography sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah.
I would probably just have pulled back slightly in your focal range. I might have just gone, if you were shooting this at 105, I would probably drop back to 90. And I think that the frame of the tree trunks you have on the left and the one that you've got on the right, which is sitting back slightly,
Yeah.
if you were to pull back slightly more, I think it would give a little bit more balanced frame to it. It's almost like those frame have actually just crammed in just a little bit, just a slight little bit. But as I said, that was if I wanted to, to critique the hell out of the image. It is a beautiful, beautiful shot, mate. I love everything about it. The atmosphere in it's incredible, and that's the most important thing, is the atmosphere, isn't it?
Yeah. I totally agree. This section of woods isn't something that I normally photograph because it is so dense.
Yeah.
Like I said, it was. I was walking back, and I just had to react to the light. But yeah, I totally agree. The left and right hand side of the frames are a bit heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I would agree with that. Yeah. Like you said, I kind of overlooked it for the sake of capturing that moment, that light, because it was in and it was gone straight away. But
Yeah.
Right, I'm just going to catch up on the chat again.
Yeah.
So Verena says, I would quite like to see the tree image in black and white. That could be an option for sure.
Yeah.
Craig says, I really like the composition and lighting on this image, but it seems that the focal point is on the tree in the foreground rather than the tree that is lit in the middle. Right.
You mean the tree on the left?
Yeah, I think he's talking about the trees on the left there.
Yeah.
I see what he gets at. Maybe to look a touch sharper than the image actually in the background. Maybe that's what you mean.
Yeah, but okay, if you were to say that, I can understand what he's coming at. That you have very, very similar tonality value in the side trees and the center tree itself. I think the only way that you could do something with that would probably apply a little bit of vignetting to it, or darken those framed trees on the side, just so slightly. I wouldn't sharpen that center tree too much. You got to remember, when we're taking images, we want to give depth and atmosphere to an image. You go and sharpen something, it's almost in your background. You're not giving reality, an atmosphere to a scene, and he has achieved that. So,
So the next one is Steve from Paul's photo. I think if the tree was slightly to the right and pull that dark path into the trees slightly more into the frame would make the image so much deeper, with the impressive tree grabbing you and pulling you through and wondering where you can go from there. Just one fella's opinion. And which is true. Totally agree, Steve. And Daniel says the one with the bluebells are almost the statement.
Good point.
Yeah, good point, definitely.
Mm.
Phil says, interesting point about desaturating the bluebell image. I tend to oversaturate. I shall try Tom's approach.
For sure.
Steve says, this one with the bluebells in is an awesome example of capturing a moment. Like he mentioned, the light was gone in a few minutes. Yeah,
very important.
definitely.
All good points. Yeah.
For sure. Right, so on to the next image then. It's good fun, this, guys.
It is. I'm enjoying
Yeah,
myself.
no,
But
comments are deep.
yeah, the good thing is we already do this anyway, so it's nice to be able to share our thoughts with other people, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
Mm, mm.
So on to your image again, Matt. What's the story behind this one?
Okay, so the first thing I would like to say about this image is I put this up for a reason. I'm not 100% proud of this image, and that's why I wanted to put it up. But it has got some important post-production techniques in it, which I think are quite important to bring up. So firstly, I took this image in Patagonia when I was heading a workshop there in 2019 with a group.
Yeah.
And we have in the background the famous Al Shelton Mountain Fitzroy. A lot of people know Fitzroy. It's a very famous silhouette in Patagonia. And everyone was sort of to the whole right of where we were. There was a little lake with a perfect reflection as the sun came up. And there's about 100 photographers there. So we rocked up first. About another 3 or 4 minutes later, everyone saw us there. And they came and they put their tripods next to us. And there was just a chaotic scene. We tried to capture an image. It was difficult. So I enticed the group to move over into this woodland, this dead woodland, which was close by, and said, let's try and do something out of the norm and not capture what everyone else is. Let's still get Fitzroy in the shot, but let's not let it dominate the scene. So I achieved this image shooting about 15 to 30, and I use these dead branches as a frame, a dominating frame that sometimes might interact and might take over from what we're actually looking at is Fitzroy Mountain. But I didn't want to give Fitzroy the importance. I wanted it to the people to be able to appreciate this dead forest and then look out and see, there's Fitzroy out there. So it wasn't an easy image to capture. The light wasn't 100% in my favour, although I did have the sunrise shining directly onto the mountain, which is good.
Yeah.
But I didn't have a storm, didn't have a crazy storm. I had too much light in the scene, and it was quite flat. So basically what I wanted to do with this image was to use a technique that not many people talk about in post-production, and I tend to use it a lot, which is why I wanted to bring this image up. And I call it contrast depth. So contrast depth is referring to a technique where we want to give dimension. I mean, when we capture an image in RAW, it is flat. It is two-dimensional.
Yeah.
And our job is to give some feeling and some dimension into that image. So by using contrast depth here, I'm referring to making the contrast very, very powerful in our foreground. Yeah. It's close to us. We can see it clearer than what we can in the background. And between the foreground and the background, there is also atmosphere that runs through that area. So by reducing the contrast, when we take a raw image, it doesn't pick up all those details. It's our job to bring it back in post-production. So the raw image itself was very, very powerfully saturated, very, very, very pungent, and I tried to delicately give some contrast depth into it. So putting some contrast into those dead tree branches in my foreground, and reducing very so slightly the contrast in the background, and also the contrast in the sky itself, because it was a very, very powerful deep blue sky, and I tried to reduce just the saturation of it a tad, just to give things back. So look, like I said, I'm not 100% proud of the image because I didn't have the light that I wanted that day. But that's how it is. I think it's an image that could be up for discussion because it's got some good points and bad points to it.
Right. Definitely. Just before we get to it, I'm just going to answer these couple of questions that are just here. A couple of comments anyway. Michael says about Tom's first photo, I really like the streak of white across the centre. I think that's the where it's illuminating the trees talking about. And David says natural light is always in motion, and often the more you hesitate to plan, you miss your best opportunity. Often we must grab and shoot to catch what we see at the moment before the moment changes. I appreciate the light, tree, and bluebells.
Mm.
Oh, cheers, David.
Yeah, so on to yours, Matt. I like it. I like this image.
Yeah, I like it.
For me,
Here we go. It's your time to shine now,
for
mate.
me being
That's
picky,
why I put it up, because I know you can be picky with this image. There's a lot to you know, you can get stuck into it, and so
Yeah,
I
yeah.
thought that was a good one to bring up. Yeah.
For me, I think the foreground's a touch dark.
Mm-hmm.
A touch. I don't say it a lot. Just for me, it's a touch dark.
Yep. Okay.
I would have probably brought up the foreground a little more.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that.
And I like the sky. I think it's maybe a touch too desaturated though.
Mm-hmm.
I like the desaturated look in the sky, but I think it's maybe a touch. But it's really difficult because blue sky days are just horrible to try and do
Yeah.
anything with. They're really difficult to try and do something with. For me,
Mm.
anyway. I don't know about you guys, but I always struggle on blue
I
sky
mean,
days.
yeah, I mean, it was taken at about 6:15 in the morning, so I mean, it wasn't like a deep blue midday sky. But people who know me out there know that I actually hate blue skies. Just want storms.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, I think I probably in post production I would have decreased the blue saturation in it by about 15-20%. So
Oh,
right.
that's quite a
not
bit
a
then.
huge amount, but
Wow.
it is something noticeable. Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
looking back at it, you can say, did you go overboard too much or not? Mm.
Yeah, it's difficult to tell though, isn't it? Because it's easy enough to look at it now and say maybe I went a bit too far, but when you're looking at it at the time,
Mm.
it
Mm.
doesn't look that way.
Definitely.
Yeah. It's one of them images where I think every image could always be improved, but it's one. This is particular, like Matt said, is a particularly good one because it has flaws. Maybe you could call them flaws or things that maybe you would change. But
Mm.
I quite like the fact that you've obviously when like you said you knew you wasn't going to get the conditions you wanted. You knew that the situation wasn't ideal with all the people there,
Mm.
and you've tried to make the best of not an ideal situation.
Mm.
Yeah,
Mm.
And I like the fact that you thought outside the box. And to be honest with you, I taking a shot that's different, or trying something different as opposed to what everyone else is going to take, goes in that favour as well. If it was, I would, for me, the tree on the right, I would like
Mm-hmm.
to see a little bit more room around the top of it. You know,
yeah,
it's getting
Bit more
close.
sky. Bit more sky.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a tiny bit more sky. Maybe shoot slightly wider and put a bit more
Mm.
sky along the top. But I don't know
Mm.
what's going on. I wouldn't. It's all right for me to say that, but I don't know what distractions you got. You tried to cut out on the left and the right.
Yeah, so
You,
this was taken with a Pentax 15 to 30 millimeter lens, and I took it at 15,
oh right,
and
right.
I square cropped it. So that's a square crop.
Yeah, yeah.
So I did cut out the left and right hand side because there was various other trees that were a bit too distracting in the image. So I
Yeah.
tried to balance it out and simplify the scene as much as I could out of a lot of distractions that I had in the left and right.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I
But
quite like the foreground the way it is. I know what Paul's saying though. Maybe it's not so much the foreground for me. It's the bark on the trees. Some of them are a little bit darker,
yeah, yeah,
but but again, it's such a high dynamic scene.
Yeah,
I do
yeah.
think if you was to try and bring up too much detail in amongst that foreground, it would look obvious.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're trying to capture what is there to your eye, then you got to be careful not to bring up that mid foreground too much because it'll look too HDR-y, won't it?
yeah,
Yeah, I think it already. I mean, looking at it, I mean, I did this image about 2 years ago. I just grabbed it out because I knew it would be a good image for discussion. If I was to redo it now, I would probably reduce the contrast globally by a few by a good 10%. I
Yeah.
think because it's one of those images that does well on on Instagram because it's bang in your face. Oh wow, boom, click, like, comment,
Yeah,
it's gone,
yeah.
then it goes mental.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of people are trying to focus on. That they're clicking for they're clicking images for likes, not for light.
Yeah.
And so it did well on social media. I've had a lot of feedback on it, but I mean, at the same time, after your Instagram and all that sort of stuff, it's not an image that you can appreciate that much. I would never print it. Yeah,
I'll get a
No,
couple of comments in on this, mate. Just a second.
yeah.
Laurie says, I don't know. I actually like it. The trees do catch my attention at first.
Mm.
Craig says, I really like the composition of this one as well. You mentioned the contrast in this image. Did you consider doing it in black and white?
Good point. Good point.
Yeah.
yeah, that would be a good black and white.
I think it would because
Steve says, Matt, I like this one a lot. Love the detail you pulled out of those dead trees in the crown of the mountain. That just adds drama in the contrast. If only there had been some sort of clouds breaking up the sky, I think he made a good image out of tough lighting, which is very true. I think the same, definitely.
Just got to go back, don't we?
Yeah, you just got to go back, mate. It's a good excuse to go back there, though, isn't it?
Damn COVID. Yeah.
Daniel says the framing according with the trees works great, but I guess a wider crop would work better, allowing more light and dark altogether.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was sort of getting at was a bit more room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Michael says lightening up the foreground just a bit might bring out some of the complementary colours. Beautiful shot.
That's true. Yeah, as you were mentioning before, Paul. Yeah.
And Bo says that sky is dramatic. Love the shot just the way it is. I would buy that print.
Jeez.
There you go, mate.
Send me your address. I'll send one out to you. No worries.
Right, cool.
Thanks. Bo's my mum, by the way.
Okay, then, buddy. On with the next image. Have you got all your family members ringing in tonight?
Yeah, I do actually. Yeah.
One of mine. So this one
go.
was taken in Canada, at a place called Little Qualicum Falls, and I was just visiting a friend out there, and I went for a walk down at these falls. And honest to God, they actually blew me away. These places, because for me, I've seen waterfalls in the UK, but nothing like these. We don't have like falls, massive falls like these, really. And the colour of the water was just awesome. You got loads of blues and green colours in the water. The size of the trees, the deadfall that were lying in the waterfall just goes to illustrate the size of the falls. The problems I had with it, though, and this is controversial, which is why I put this one in here, is that all the way around the edge of the top section of the image, there's actually metal railings, like a metal chain link fence. And I hated it. So I've cloned it all out. All the bits that were obvious, I cloned them out. Now it's controversial. Some people don't like that, but for me, I just wanted it gone. And the most noticeable bit was towards the back end of the image, so I wasn't too concerned about it, because it's not as if I was eliminating something that was right in your face. It was already towards the back, but it was just distracting for me.
Yeah.
I would have liked maybe a touch more light in the background as well, a touch more ambient light coming down from the top end of the falls.
Yeah.
Just to add a bit more depth at the back end of the falls there. And the other thing that I don't like is the very foreground on the bottom left-hand corner where that grass is. I wish I'd either gone in a touch tighter or got rid of that as well.
Okay.
For me.
Yeah,
Tom.
I can see why you would. The pretty valid points, I would say. It does lack a little bit of depth in the background.
Yeah.
Again, it's the conditions that you were given. It's not exactly you can go back to this one tomorrow, is it?
No, it's not. It's not really
So
one I can just.
Not up the road. No.
No,
no,
no.
no, I know what you mean. And the fence situation, I totally understand why.
Mm,
I think most people would want to get rid of it. Most people wouldn't know how to get rid of it.
yeah,
So I don't think people can begrudge you eliminating that, because at the end of the day, you're trying to make a perfect scene, aren't you? You're trying to make it exactly how you want, and I don't think there's any rules or regulations. You do what you want, mate. So
yeah. I have
um,
more of a problem kind of putting stuff into an image than I do taking it out.
Taken
To be
out.
perfectly
Good
yeah,
honest.
point, mate. Very good point. Very good point.
yeah, I totally agree with that. And like you said, the fact that it is way off in the background there, I wouldn't hesitate. I would have done the same thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Obviously, I never been there, so I can't really know the outcome. If you went a bit, what could you go wider? This rock,
The
this
problem you've got here is where that patch of grass is. You're actually stood right next to a chain link fence,
oh right, yeah,
and you can't get on the other side of it. I actually had my tripod over the top of the fence. It was actually sitting kind of halfway across the fence,
yeah,
and you without going for a wider focal length, you would really struggle, and you would probably at that
yeah.
point you would probably start to pick up a bit of the
Fence
path from the fence.
in the foreground, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. That log on the right hand side, is that, because I have seen images of this before, like different versions and different time of year and things, and then
yeah.
logs obviously move around a fair bit, and they all there's
Yeah, well, some of them get washed downstream, and then you'll get new ones coming in the place. It's
yeah,
just dependent on what's there at the time.
Is this that I recognise this scene, and I think I recognise it from a YouTube video that Kevin Hardcastle did.
Yeah, it's exactly the
yeah,
same falls.
Yeah, mate. I don't think you could do any better about the
no,
frame. It's a very. I've seen this actual YouTube video that Hardcastle did, and I remember thinking, "What? That's beautiful as it is. Great to sit down and have a sandwich and have a picnic and enjoy the scene, but very
Yeah,
very
yeah.
very complex scene to capture.
Yeah, for
Doesn't
sure.
give you much options, does it?
No, it's
Um,
kind of difficult.
it is. Look, that foreground. It's beautiful, and you can really really appreciate how beautiful that place is. But at the same time, I think that you've put in that foreground in your bottom third, that waterfall,
Yeah,
and it is gorgeous. And you are trying to create some flow, a leading line.
yeah,
But at the same time, I would actually contemplate cutting the foreground out. I know that might sound a bit vicious, but it would
right.
simplify the image and make it a bit more balanced, because it almost seems as though you don't have a an equilibrium to your flow
Right.
through the scene, and it's due to the actual place itself. You can't improve that. Maybe
Yeah,
if you would have moved more to the right,
yeah,
um,
possibly. Yeah, I should have
or
probably moved.
more to the left and have it coming in from a corner, but
Yeah,
it gives that impression that's very, very flat. It's just like bang, waterfall, and background, and it's
yeah,
sort of all in your face, all in one go. Um,
yeah.
yeah, but I
yeah.
know very, very complex area to photograph, and you've
That's
done a
not a
good
bad
job at
shout
cropping it
actually.
out. Mm.
Yeah, that's not a bad shout. I wonder if you could go in a bit tighter and lose that
Possibly. Yeah,
bottom waterfall.
yeah,
Mm.
possibly.
Which is, like I said, it's vicious because it is a beautiful waterfall to cut out, and you say, why would you cut out that for? That's it's a beautiful piece of waterfall, but I think it would clean the image up.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Yeah,
yeah. I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
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 yeah. And as we are talking about before with contrast depth, I would probably um, find a way to maybe just reduce, maybe even not, maybe leave the way it is, maybe slightly reduce a bit of contrast depth or put a bit of soft light. We've
yeah,
talked about that before
yeah, yeah,
in post production. Very subtle. You don't want to destroy the image. A very very soft light to sort of give you the idea that a light is coming down from a canopy, and just to
yeah.
give
yeah,
it just a little hint of atmosphere, because it is flat as an image.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
very
for sure.
flat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think you would have processed this differently now, Paul, if you said have another go at it? Like, I mean, like with
Probably.
the technique wise in Photoshop, like like
Yeah,
Matt said,
yeah. Probably
you see,
technique wise, I'd probably add a bit more sort of atmosphere, probably at the back
Mm.
end of the image. I still like the sort of muted greens and that sort of, the feel to the image, and I like the color of the water. Still like that, but definitely I'd probably try and get bring back some more of that atmosphere at the back end of the falls.
For sure.
Because the shutter speed you've used to create that text, a little bit of texture on them falls in the background.
Yeah,
I would say it's spot on. So if you was to crop in a bit tighter,
yeah,
a little bit of atmosphere at the top, and just see what it looks like. But yeah,
it
looks
like
like an awesome place.
Daniel says, very tricky shot. Love the fact that some of those stick with you. Yeah, that's true. So sometimes it's the ones that are the challenge that actually stick with you, isn't it?
For sure.
And Daniel also says, damn you, fences. You're right there. You're right there.
They're there for a reason, though.
Yeah. And moving on to Tom's image, you'll see exactly why.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's just clicked now. Right. Yeah. We've spoke about this, Paul, haven't we?
Yeah, we have.
Yeah.
For the very reason we've just been discussing.
Yeah. Do you know what? At the time, I never even thought about about the fence.
Yeah.
I don't know whether that's just because I walked past this tree hundreds of times, and I always try to take a picture of it. But that is the view we're looking at now is the view, because I'm shooting across, probably, I don't know, 100 meters, 200, 150 meters. So I'm using the long lens right out. Yeah, and I've took this tree before in lots of different seasons, but I knew this tree had a lot more to offer, and luckily enough we had a little bit of snow, nothing major, but you can tell how cold it is.
Yeah.
It's a touch on the blue side. I've processed this with a slightly warmer white balance, but I always get drawn back to the bluer look, just because for obvious reasons. But yeah, this was complete opposite to what the image before in terms of how I planned it. This was a tree, like I said, that I've seen 100 times. So when I go back there, you can almost put my tripod in the same 3 holes every time, so I know exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fence situation, for me,
that's my fault because I brought it up.
For me, I don't know. I feel like it adds a little bit of interest on the lower, because I can't get into the field. I can't get tighter with the lens I've got. And if I did go any tighter, I'm not sure I would lose too much of the outside of the tree, if you know what I mean. It is obviously about the tree, and I was really struggling to even eliminate the field. Maybe we'll have to go and ask the landowner if I can get in his field and get a bit tighter and shoot it with a wider lens.
You couldn't
you're
crop it
struggle.
out. You can't crop it out. You can't. No. I mean, you can crop it. I mean, so you can't reduce the frame, because you're going to take out too much of the importance of the forest floor, which probably already is quite tight as it is.
Yeah,
I would probably say, mate, don't take the fence out. The fence is a distraction. It's clearly a distraction. Why is it a distraction? Because it's actually so tight to the bottom of your frame.
Yeah.
Okay, if you were to actually move out slightly, go back a little bit, give a bit more of the forest floor an importance, you'll take a bit of importance away from that tree. I mean, from that fence, sorry. Because the first thing you see is, when you look at a scene, is you look at the center of the scene, or you look at something that's leading you into the center of the scene. And that fence is bang in front of you because it's so tight to the bottom of the frame. It's almost like it's framed the frame, but it shouldn't. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If you were to not be so tight, maybe go back a little bit more, get a bit of forest floor in there, and take away the importance of that fence being so tight, you might not see it as much anymore.
Yeah, the trouble is there isn't a forest floor there. It's literally a ploughed field.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's why I went as tight as I could, without trying to sacrifice a minimal amount of tree around the outside of my frame.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's one of them. It's a
Yeah,
bit
it's
like
difficult one.
it's a bit like your shot before in terms of I was really restricted to where I can stand,
For sure.
um, and I'm kind of making a best of it, sort of a awkward position.
Yeah.
But yeah, the tree is awesome, and honestly, I walked around this tree hundreds of times to try to find a better angle, and I haven't yet, but there must be. Um, I'm not going to give in with this one, but yeah, with a little bit of snow, just helps them branches pop. Um, brings out the dimension in it. If you shoot this tree and when you haven't got that, or when it's leafed up, I haven't
Yeah.
shot it in autumn yet. I'm looking forward this autumn. I'll be having another go at this.
Yeah.
But yeah, but you're going to lose that network, I think, of branches.
Mate, I
Yeah,
think it's beautiful. I think it's beautiful. Yeah.
yeah, it
Look,
means
it's
a
got
lot
a
to me. This one, yeah, I'm working at it, so it's I've invested time in it. So
Yeah. Yeah,
keep
it's one
going
of
back.
those that you'll keep
Keep
going
going
back
back.
to, and yeah,
Mm.
get it eventually.
yeah,
I'll
Yep,
just
for
catch up
sure.
on the chat finally.
Mm.
Right, so Jennifer says, I like the fence in this photo. It gives me the sensation of being there and seeing it as it is for myself.
Mm.
Bo
Good
says,
point.
Ichabod Crane is hanging around there somewhere. It's got that sort of feeling about it. I think it's
It
probably because
does.
of the cool
Does.
temperatures as well. That kind of brings that out.
Yeah, so much
Um,
atmosphere to this image. Mm.
yeah. And Andrea says, I like the fence, adds to the mystery of the photo.
Mm-hmm.
Molly says, with Tom's image, could you do something completely different and change your perspective completely and shoot from underneath the tree looking straight up?
yeah. Never thought about that.
Yeah,
I can get to the base of the tree. Yeah,
yeah,
Mm.
that might be worth a
yeah,
go, especially
I
in
can.
autumn.
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah,
And
Maybe shoot
Michael,
it. Mm.
sorry,
Sorry.
yeah.
Yeah.
sorry, on.
No, you're saying, Michael?
Michael says, I think the fence makes the image more real. Fabulous picture.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
thanks, mate.
Very, very good point.
Yeah, yeah. It definitely is real. There's nothing fancy about the image. It is what it is. But,
Yeah, but those are the best images, mate. The simple ones I always think are the best.
yeah, yeah. Like I said, it is about the tree and the conditions helping that tree stand out. Um,
Mm.
yeah, don't get me wrong. If I prefer the fence not to be there. But
Yeah,
yeah, I've
but
sort of
it is.
grown to live with it.
Yeah.
Mm.
So David says, if anything, you need a tad more foreground for the fence to stand on. Agree with Matt. Go back when it is a grassy field.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea actually. Yeah,
And
Mm.
yeah,
Daniel says the tree is a behemoth, fence behind a stick. It's a beautiful subject. Try taking a square crop of it.
yeah. Well,
Good point.
eliminating. Yeah, good point.
Yeah, good point. And Steve says it's a lovely tree but feels crowded. Understanding you were limited to mention a previous comment. This one might be extra powerful in black and white.
Yeah, I never thought about black and white.
Yeah, look, I think the black and white, yeah, it would be interesting to see what it would look like.
Yeah,
But I think a black and white image here, the beauty of this image is these soft tones in the image and the atmosphere in it. And I think in black and white, you wouldn't see them. You need to
maybe
have
not.
some important contrast in an image to really appreciate an image in black and white. So I think
Yeah,
Yeah,
those very cool tones in it and that soft light that's distributed throughout the majority of the image gives it what it is.
yeah. That's kind of what I said earlier. Like I have adjusted the white balance, and I keep getting drawn back to the slightly bluer because that's how it was. It was freezing.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, but yeah, I know it's maybe I will have another go at it and see if I can crop it, and who knows.
Or just take it out, mate. As Paul said, sometimes it's nice to remove things. It's putting things
Yeah,
in that's,
Mm,
you know,
yeah,
I'll
being
have a go at it
dishonest. Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
have a go just for you, mate. Oh, just if I can get rid of it.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks, buddy. I'll appreciate it.
Well, guys, this has been fun, and
It
thank you
has.
everybody. Thank you everybody for joining us. It's been great fun. This, and if you want to get your images critiqued, please go to the official Facebook group, which is the official outdoor photography guide group, and use the hashtag OPG critique to get your imaging included. Thanks very much for joining us, everyone. Hope to see
Thanks,
you again on
guys.
the
Thanks,
next one.
everyone.
Cheers.
Thanks for the
Thank you.
comments. Thanks for your participation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Superb. Thanks now.
Bye.
See ya.